Philosophical Living. This is a new and short course titled Philosophical Living, taken from the book Educational Programs by Muteb Alqarni. In this course, we will explore the opinions of philosophers on the virtuous way of living life, and we will discuss these opinions sequentially starting from ancient philosophy, passing through medieval philosophy, and ending with contemporary philosophy. The presentation will include both Eastern and Western, religious and non-religious thoughts. In this course, we will discuss the views of philosophers such as Confucius, Buddha, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Thomas Aquinas, Descartes, Kant, Spinoza, Sartre, Foucault, Habermas, Hegel, and many others. Do you want to live the life of philosophers and adopt their views on your life? Do you want a new philosophical way of living? Let's learn to live our lives based on the thoughts of philosophers. With the outbreak of wars and conflicts among humans, there emerged the need for a new philosophy and understanding of the human's role towards nature and its creatures. The Chinese philosopher Laozi appeared in the 6th century BC with Taoist philosophy, which calls for calming the mind and contemplating nature and harmonizing with it. Laozi emphasizes the importance of calmness, saying, "Nature does not hurry." Calmness and meditation are original characteristics in Eastern philosophy, and everything related to meditation will later be found on the tongues of Eastern philosophers like Confucius and Buddha, etc. Ask yourself, do you calm your mind? Do you harmonize with nature and contemplate it? Try today to live like Laozi and calm your mind by contemplating nature. Contemplating nature helps humans accept its creatures and reduce wars among them. However, Laozi could not end the wars among his people. So Confucius, 551–479 BC, came emphasizing the importance of stopping wars, but this time through human ethics, saying, "Do not do to others what you do not want done to yourself." Confucius's goal does not differ from Laozi's goal. He wants to teach humans ethics that regulate them and steer them away from conflicts. Try to live today as Confucius did, adopting ethics that restrain your desires from attacking others. Ask yourself, do you attack others, or do you commit to ethical principles that restrain your desires? The best philosophy for living life is to live like Confucius, who doesn't do others what he doesn't want done to himself. When you contemplate nature as Laozi wants, you tend towards calmness and non-violence. And when you treat others as you want to be treated, as Confucius calls for, you tend towards peace, not war. After Laozi and Confucius, Buddha, 563–483 BC, appeared to resume the call for peace, this time by controlling the mind, saying, "All that we are is the result of what we have thought." From this Buddhist mind emerged the idea of mindfulness among Buddhists. Whoever reviews their thoughts, controls them, and changes them from pessimistic thoughts calling for war to optimistic thoughts calling for peace will control their desires more than others, and thus peace will prevail among communities. Live today like Buddha and control your mind by changing your thoughts. The proclamation of the importance of the mind and controlling thoughts has contributed to the spread of Eastern philosophy to other regions. Eastern philosophy spread until it reached the lands of the Greeks, where reason began to dominate. There appeared Socrates, 469–399 BC, calling for the use of reason in discovering life, saying, "An unexamined life is not worth living." It is a call to start examination. Socrates believes that humans will not be able to examine their lives until they admit their ignorance and begin studying and exploring them, so he was known for saying, "I am the wisest man alive, for I know one thing, and that is, that I know nothing. Try today to live like Socrates. Try admitting your ignorance first, and then start examining your life. This is a philosophical way of living life. The goal behind Socrates' idea of examining life with mind and reason is for the individual to control their desires and rid themselves of impulses towards war and conflict. Socrates' influence extended to his student Plato, 427 to 347 BC, who continued the process of study and examination by emphasizing the importance of seeking knowledge, but in a non-coercive manner. Therefore, Plato says, "Knowledge that comes by force does not control the mind." In other words, seek knowledge willingly so that you restrain your desires. Plato was an advocate of absolutism, where everything has scientific and absolute knowledge. Ask yourself, do you seek knowledge out of love and desire or out of compulsion and necessity? Live today in a Platonic way and seek knowledge by choice, not coercion. This will make you grow faster. Plato's absolutism led to extremism and rigidity. Everything is absolute, either 100% true or 100% false. Since Plato's aim was to control desires and reduce indulgence, Antisthenes, 444-365 BC, emerged, a student of Socrates and a contemporary of Plato, advocating for the philosophy of cynicism, which advocates for abstaining from pleasures in general. One of the prominent figures of cynical philosophy was Diogenes, who lived an ascetic lifestyle, renouncing worldly pleasures. He went to the extreme of forsaking desires, addressing the issue of controlling desires from their roots. Try living today like Antisthenes and Diogenes, abstaining from life's pleasures for a month. Try it for a month to taste the abandonment of indulgence, thus reducing the love for conflict and war over the material possessions of life. As you can see, the absolutism philosophy contributed to pushing the Cyrenaic philosophy to adopt an extreme approach that calls for asceticism and abandoning all pleasures and delights. Therefore, Aristippus, 435–356 BC, a student of Socrates and also a colleague of Plato, came to establish an extreme and contradictory approach to Cyrenaicism that calls for utter immersion in pleasures, known as hedonism. Hedonistic philosophy sees the best way to live life is to enjoy it and its pleasures, such as wine and sex, etc. It seems to be a reactionary response to the Cyrenaic philosophy's asceticism in everything, as hedonism is outgoing and indulgent in everything. Do you deprive yourself of pleasures and delights? Then try extremism and immersion in all joys. Try living today in an Aristippian manner, enjoying everything for just a month. Plato's absolutism led to the emergence of two extreme schools of thought, the ascetic cynicism and the indulgent hedonism. Therefore, it was necessary for his student Aristotle, 384–322 BC, to establish a logical mind to reconsider the importance of moderation. Aristotle came as a counterbalance to extremism and a proponent of moderation in life. He introduced the concept of the golden mean and emphasized that controlling desires is not achieved by abstaining from pleasures, as with Antisthenes, or indulging in them, as with Aristippus, but by moderating them. Today, don't be like Antisthenes or Aristippus, but Aristotelian and moderate. Moderation is a philosophical approach to life regarding pleasures, neither addiction nor deprivation. Remember that all the preceding aims to regulate the self and therefore stop wars and conflicts. Since pleasures are external and there are extremes and moderation, Stoicism continued the call for self-regulation, but this time by delving into the inner self and caring for it, and by disregarding possessions, represented by Seneca, 4 BC, 65 CE, and Epictetus, 55-35 CE. The problem arises from within, Seneca asserts, saying, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And Epictetus agrees, saying, "It is not what happens to us that matters, but our reaction to what happens." These statements affirm that regulation is internal. So, try living today as a Stoic and look inward, for your suffering may be in your mind, and the problem may lie in your reaction, not in the actions of the world. Although Laozi is the founder of Eastern philosophy, calmness, his influence waned with the rise of Confucius and Buddha, ethics and contemplative mind, who produced a spiritual philosophy. Despite Socrates being the founder of Western philosophy, his influence also diminished with the rise of Plato and Aristotle, knowledge and logical mind, who produced a materialistic philosophy. Here religions emerged. Knowledge of the Creator and the mission of the messengers became a new beginning for self-regulation, reducing desires, and alleviating war and conflict as well. The truth is that religions resolved a lingering crisis, human inability to self-regulate, redirecting them to sense the presence of a God who would punish them if they did not regulate themselves and their desires. Try living today religiously, peacefully, believing that you will be held accountable for not regulating yourself. If you can't stop your desires by choice, stop them in fear of a punishing God. The religion of Allah is Islam is a Quranic statement affirming that the essence of religion is the call to peace and the abolition of war and conflict. On a linguistic level, Islam, as a word, means peace. Since religion originated in the Middle East, alongside the Greeks, the influence of Western philosophy on it was stronger than that of Eastern philosophy until it reached India and the Indian subcontinent, where Eastern philosophy influenced it. The most important idea generated by religions is adherence to the one God. It is a new call to contemplate the distant space, after the Greeks were concerned with the earth and matter, and the Easterners were concerned with mind and nature. Exploring space is a philosophy for living life, brought forward by religions. Try living today cosmically, contemplating the Creator of this vast universe. Try to be Abrahamic, searching for the secrets of the heavens from the sun and moon. He said, "This is my Lord." Although religions are divine messages, their followers were influenced by some worldly philosophies. It can be said that Plato's absolutist approach influenced pre-Islamic religions, producing extremism and fanaticism, while Aristotle's moderate approach influenced post-Islamic religions, producing moderation and balance. Judaism became extremist, making killing an extreme atonement for the desires of the soul and its sins. Similarly, Christianity emphasized extreme forgiveness and peace, with Christ, 4 BC, 33 CE, saying, "If someone slaps you on your right cheek, turn to him the other also." It's the extremism and fanaticism that our Prophet Muhammad, 570-632, noticed and called for its elimination, replacing it with moderation. Try living today moderately, neither peacefully nor vengefully, for this is a philosophy for living. Religious thought prevailed throughout the world, reaching both East and West. When religions reached the East, they were influenced by Buddhist and Taoist thought, where spirituality, not materialism, was emphasized, and the connection with nature and the cosmos, not with reason and humanity. Thus, the sect of Gnosticism emerged, as did the sect of Sufism, both of which are a mixture of Eastern Buddhist and Confucian beliefs. Gnosticism, is a distortion of Judaism and Christianity, mixed with Buddhist and Zoroastrian thought from the Eastern Persian and Indian world. It is a philosophy among philosophies of life that claims that knowing God may make the individual an independent and knowledgeable God with his own secrets. What you need from this philosophy is to be well acquainted with God today, not an independent God as they claim. Gnosticism also penetrated Islamic thought with the Islamic conquests of India and the Indian subcontinent, giving rise to what is called Sufism, the other face of Christian Gnosticism. Sufis began to venerate divine knowledge in what is called revelation and gnosis, believing in the unity of existence and that God and man are not different. Hence, figures like Al-Halig, 858-922, and others emerged. Religions came triumphantly in favor of materialistic reason, as evidenced by the repetitions of "Do they not reason?" and "Do they not contemplate?" in the Quran. Therefore, spirituality began to reject this rationality, starting from Gnosticism and Sufism. Try living today as a Sufi, following the Sufism of the moderators like Ibn Taymiyyah and others, meaning living with an aspiration to understand the secrets of God, not to be integrally embodied in God. The Gnostic and Sufi movements caused the promotion of spirituality and the hindrance of materialistic reason in religions altogether. Therefore, reactions were expected in favor of this annulled reason. The call for the rationalization and reform of religion began again, with the philosopher Ibn Rushd, 1126–1198, emerging as a renewer of Islam, reviving reason and diligence, and refuting Sufism and Gnosis. Similarly, Thomas Aquinas, 1225–1274, appeared as a corrector of Christian religion, integrating it with Aristotelian philosophy, while Spinoza, 1632–1677, appeared later, renewing Jewish thought and even overturning it, denying the existence of God. Renewing thought is also a philosophy of life, so live today as an Averroist or Aquinian, review your beliefs, and strive to reform and purify them. Again, remember that all of the above is an attempt to regulate the self and desires and eventually to stop war and conflict, a universal concern for all nations and societies. The East initially began by empowering spirituality and contemplative reason in the universe, extreme spirituality. Then the West came authorizing materialism and logical reason, extreme materialism. Then religions emerged as a mixture of materialism and spirituality under the guise of moderation and balance. Then spirituality and contemplative reason emerged again in an extreme form, through Gnosticism and Sufism. Then rationality and logical reason appeared as an extreme reaction in Ibn Rushd, Thomas Aquinas, and the atheist Spinoza. Here specifically, the beginning of a moderate rational Enlightenment age was declared, extending to our present age. Adhering to moderate reason is a philosophy of living, so live today moderately and rationally. In light of the above, it can be said that extremism in empowering the mind as a reaction to empowering the spirit was not the satisfactory solution for those centuries thirsty to stop evils and conflicts. Therefore, the French philosopher René Descartes, 1596–1650, appeared with a moderate solution that satisfies both the spirit and the mind. Descartes introduced the idea of doubt in everything, doubting the mind before doubting the spirit. He laid the groundwork for a scientific method and Cartesian doubt in his work, Discourse on the Method in Pursuit of That. Despite his concern for the spirit, he could not completely abolish the mind, for thought is existence. So his famous statement was, "I think, therefore I am." Live today like Descartes. Live doubting everything, using the doubt method in everything, thinking about everything, as your existence begins with thinking. Descartes' goal was to produce a thought suitable for the entire world, not a specific religion or philosophy, meaning to produce useful and rational thought that suits humans, or at least the majority in the world. The word "the majority" will be repeated in the following episodes, so spot that key word carefully. However, a person cannot be able to think unless he is free to express. Hence the idea of freedom, liberty, emerged. The leader of the freedom movement was John Locke, 1638–1704, who called for granting absolute freedom to humans. In short, imposing opinions leads to wars, and peace will not prevail until humans are given the freedom to express their opinions. And we demand respect for individual freedoms, for freedom is a human right. Live today as a Lockean. Live with freedom and advocate for it to stop conflict among people. Descartes aimed to influence the majority's thinking, while Locke aimed for their liberation. Enter English philosopher Jeremy Bentham, 1748–1832, advocating for the majority's happiness and benefit. This is the essence of utilitarianism, asserting that the best course of action is to ensure the majority's happiness and benefit, as utility is determined by numbers. John Stuart Mill, 1806–1873, was influenced by Locke and Bentham, leading him to adopt utilitarianism in his book On Liberty. What matters most is the prevalence of the majority's interests. So, whether you align with Bentham's principles or Mill's, prioritize the rights and benefits of the majority. It's the neglect of this principle that often leads to wars and conflicts. Strive to satisfy the majority, and peace will follow. From the same thread of concern for the majority, Immanuel Kant, 1724–1804, formulates his ethical approach in search of establishing universal ethics, thereby eliminating the role of religions in his foundational call for ethics. Kant aims to establish universal ethics, ones that suit the majority, ethics agreed upon by the majority of people. Therefore, Kant advises humans to act only according to a maxim whereby they feel it should become a universal law applied to all. In short, ask yourself before acting, do you want this action to be imposed as a universal law and ethical principle adhered to by the entire world? If so, then it is ethical. Try living today as a Kantian. Try to act according to universal ethics accepted by the majority of humans. Hence, the idea of human rights began. You must do what you accept another human to do, and what you wish to be a universal law safeguarding your right and the rights of others. The idea of the majority remained prevalent in these centuries, so Karl Marx, 1818–1883, came to emphasize the importance of sharing wealth with the majority in the world. Marx advocated combating the minority's monopolization of wealth. In short, Marx came as a proponent of socialism, meaning that states should collect wealth from everyone and share it with society without monopolizing it. Thus, Marx abolishes class divisions among humans, establishing a peaceful, cooperative society rather than a warring one. Live today as a Marxist and try to share some of your wealth with others. The biggest mistake Marx made was the abolition of the minority's freedom and right to investment and monopolization. He abolished individual freedom. Therefore, the individual and individualism emerged victorious over the idea of the majority, or collectivism, where the individual has their right and freedom. Hence, existentialism emerged, advocating for individual freedom. The French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre, 1905–1980, led this movement, influenced by predecessors like Kierkegaard and Heidegger. Sartre says, "Man is condemned to be free, We are defined by our choices. Man is nothing else but what he makes of himself. Live today as a Sartrean, defending your existence as an individual. Live your full right and ensure the rights of others as individuals. The focus on the individual came as a reactionary response to the focus on the majority. Since then, philosophical work has focused on the individual, studying their identity, essence, and ensuring their rights and freedom. Here, the French philosopher Simone de Beauvoir, 1908-1986, Sartre's companion, emerged, advocating for her identity as a woman and founding feminist philosophy. De Beauvoir goes further, saying, "One is not born, but rather becomes a woman," indicating that social influences sometimes shape gender identity and are the reason for the termination of feminist rights and the triumph of masculinity, as society creates and reinforces masculinity. Live today as a Beauvoirian and advocate women's rights, as women are an essential part of this human existence. The focus on gender identity opened the door to other attempts to understand human essence, especially since gender is a driving force in its primary composition. Here, the French philosopher Michel Foucault, 1929–1984, contributed with his work on the history of sexuality. Foucault lived his life as a homosexual, which became a concern and an interest in his study of his sexual identity primarily. Foucault affirms this by saying, "Sexuality is not necessarily a reproductive biological process, but rather a social system linked to how we shape our identities." Hence, the idea of defending LGBTQ+ rights arose. Live today as a Foucaultian, and not necessarily be LGBTQ+, just be aware of the human essence as an individual and its varied sexual inclinations and how they have formed throughout history. The existence of groups advocating for females and others advocating for males, along with groups advocating for LGBTQ+ individuals and others advocating for non-LGBTQ+ individuals, signifies a new explosion of wars and conflicts. Hence, the American philosopher John Rawls, 1929–2002, emerged with his call for justice as the guaranteed path to enhancing human rights, regardless of their identity. Rawls claims that justice will prevail when wearing the veil of ignorance, so you do not know the identity of the person for whom you are writing these human rights. Knowing the identities and sexual orientations of individuals leads to writing rights in favor of the majority that nullifies the rights of the individual. Live today as a Rawlsian and make justice for all your primary message. The concern for the individual and achieving justice for all individuals has preoccupied contemporary philosophers. Here, the German philosopher Jürgen Habermas, born 1929, emerged, advocating for the concept of communicative action, believing that communicative action among individuals guarantees the protection of human rights, allowing them to increase awareness of their common interests. Communication erases boundaries between individuals, and thus the Slovenian philosopher Slavoj Žižek, born 1949, also came with the idea of dialogue in promoting human rights, as dialogue dissipates conflict. Today, try living Habermasian and Žižekian, believing in the importance of communication and dialogue with others. Communication and dialogue are philosophies for living. Communication and dialogue greatly contribute to reducing tension and conflict among humans, which is humanity's foremost concern in living a peaceful life. To promote justice among individuals, the Australian philosopher Peter Singer, born 1946, came up with the idea of justice with animals. Singer here informs us that those who advocate for animal rights directly advocate for human rights. Singer states that using animals for food, clothing, experimentation, and entertainment is unethical and indefensible. It's a new idea telling us that a person who refuses to kill animals and violate their rights will not accept killing humans and violating their rights. Live today as a Singerian and advocate for animal rights on this earth, as you are not alone in it. Communication and dialogue greatly contribute to reducing tension and conflict among humans, which is humanity's foremost concern in living a peaceful life. To promote justice among individuals, the Australian philosopher Peter Singer, born 1946, came up with the idea of justice with animals. Singer here informs us that those who advocate for animal rights directly advocate for human rights. Singer states that using animals for food, clothing, experimentation, and entertainment is unethical and indefensible. It's a new idea telling us that a person who refuses to kill animals and violate their rights will not accept killing humans and violating their rights. Today, embrace the Singerian philosophy and stand up for animal rights on this planet, knowing you're not alone in this endeavor. Here we reach the conclusion of the Philosophical Living course. In this course, we learned many perspectives and opinions about philosophical ways of living to enable us to live a virtuous life. It suffices to conclude here and say that all previous attempts and efforts to establish a correct theory for living life aim to stop wars and conflicts and revive peace. The human issue is how to live this life peacefully. How do we exercise our rights and desires without infringing on the rights and desires of others? This is the big question debated by philosophers, even if from a hidden side. Perhaps you have your own philosophy for living life, so ask in light of the above framework. Does it promote peace and tranquility? This is the concern of philosophers. This course, Philosophical Living, is taken from the book Educational Programs by Muteb Alqarni.